Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Homeschool Minnesota. My name is Dayle Annand. I'm very excited to have you with us today. This podcast is an outreach of Minnesota Association of Christian Home Educators, MÂCHÉ. So we just are so grateful to have you here. Um, I'm excited because it is Christmas time. And if you could see where I live right now, beyond this, maybe one day I'll actually do like the podcast in front of the Christmas tree because I actually have something hidden in my Christmas tree all over that has to do with the story that we're talking about today. And as a Minnesotan, I'm excited to bring this next book to you all for Christmas. In Minnesota, we have a huge Swedish population, and those who aren't Swedish are Norwegian or Finnish. That's who we are. And then we're something else. We're Polish, we're Italian, we're whatever, German, but we are first and foremost Scandinavians. And that's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And so I grew up with some traditions that are very Scandinavian. And today's story is going to bring us those traditions. We are going to be talking about this book. You guys, this is such a pretty book. There we go. It's called, let's see if I can get it in here. A Christmas Wish for Little Dala Horse, and it's by Sonja Anderson. And we are so blessed to have Sonja with us today. Hi, Sonja. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm just thrilled to be here today.
Well, I'm excited that you're here. We actually started the whole podcast before we even started recording because we had so much to say about it. So we're going to endeavor to bring you guys into the conversation so you can hear what's going on. But first of all, this book, you guys, it's so pretty. And you know where it's like up here? It's actually textured. And you guys know that for children, that kind of stuff is important. Like they love the feel of something first. They get drawn to the cover before they get drawn to the story. And this cover is just front and back. Look at the back. It's just so pretty and it sparkles and everything. It's beautiful. The illustrations, there's little gnomes hidden throughout the book, which I also have little gnomes hidden throughout my Christmas tree. That's kind of something that we do. Um, Anyways, for children to find, it's just there's so much about it. Sonja, tell us a little bit about the story of the Little Dala Horse.
Yes, it's a story about a newly carved horse who doesn't really know anything about anything. And he makes friends in the shop with an old horse who's in the shop to get his leg repaired. And the old horse starts telling him about Christmas and about he's so worn out, but he's loved, and says a well worn toy is a loved toy, don't you know? And the little Dala horse just gets more and more curious about what it means to be truly loved. What does it mean about Christmas? Like, what is all the excitement about? What is so special? And so the book is really a journey of discovering that for himself and um, lending some courage through the stories he hears about brave Santa Lucia bringing light and food and help to the Christians and persecution in her time period in Italy. And he finds his courage to help a little girl in the Lucia pageant do her job, and understands a little bit more by the end about what love is and friendship, even if you're not quite finished and a little bit broken. And I think that's a theme that resonates today.
Yeah, so
Um,
much.
and so many kids are going through so much, and it's just really reassuring to them. I've been reading the story all week to all the classes in my elementary public school library where I work as the librarian assistant. And it is resonating. I can see that in their faces and the quiet listening behavior, as it really seems to ring true to them that they have something to give. They have gifts of the heart they can give even when life isn't perfect.
I love that. I read the story. I've read the story multiple times because I just really wanted to get the feel for it. And one thing that we do need to clarify, and here's the cool thing about this book is that you get an education while you're reading it, but you don't realize that that's what's happening. One of the things that we get to learn about is Santa Lucia. So can you tell us her story?
Sure. Santa Lucia was a woman who lived not quite 300 years after Jesus. And she was a believer with her mother, and her mother became very ill. And she prayed to the Lord to heal her mother. And that if he would, she promised that she would give her dowry money to help the poor Christians that were being persecuted at the time and the ones that were like in hiding. And her mother did become better. And she kept her promise, much to the dismay of her fiance, who was looking forward to this wealthy family's dowry. And when he found out what she was doing, he turned her into the authorities and she was murdered. And so that part doesn't really play into the story. I have that like fuller story in the back of the book in an author's note,
Yes.
but just enough for the kids to know that she was a brave woman who brought food and help to people in hiding through the help of her crown of candles. And we see it as a beautiful procession in many places today. My kids were raised in a church here in Seattle, Washington, that was founded by Swedes, and we continue the tradition every year by this one service that's almost all in Swedish, except for the Lucia story that is told in English and a couple of other things. But all of it's translated in the bulletin that comes with it. And it's just the most beautiful candlelit service. But it starts at the beginning of Advent. And so for us as a family, it really connected with us about the true meaning of Christmas and selflessness and this woman's dedication to the Lord that really has impacted many, many people throughout the centuries since.
And I know in
Somehow the
Minneapolis.
story came to Sweden, and I
Yeah.
don't really know how.
Isn't that interesting? It's actually an Italian story, but this Swedish just really grabbed onto it, um, somehow. But it's so cool because even in, like, the Swedish Institute or the Swedish Museum here in Minneapolis, it's a massive place here in
Mhm.
Minneapolis, and, they do a lot of beautiful Christmas traditions that you can partake of, as you if you wanna visit their museum and their institute, and, one of them is Santa Lucia. They do, like, a whole thing pageant, I guess, with Santa
Mhm.
Lucia, which is really good. Um, so understanding, that the whole thing is built around a traditional pageant for Santa Lucia at Christmas time, at the beginning of Advent, but what is a Dala horse?
A Dollahorse is a kind of a distinctively shaped wooden horse, usually a carved pine horse, that emerged out of a region of Sweden called Dalarna, and they still make millions of these, like every year. And they've become a big tourist symbol of Sweden ever since the World's Fair in New York City. I think it was in like 1939, and they had a huge one outside the Sweden Pavilion, and it became more widely known. But it is really just a simple little carved horse, and it is just a charming symbol of Sweden. And the orangey red color came from the copper mines in that
Oh,
region,
wow,
and kind
okay.
of a leftover part of the process of copper mining. And they used that to mix the paint, and it lent itself to this like distinctive orangey red color. And kind of a fun little behind the scenes thing about the book is that in this original brief that the publisher Tyndale Kids sent to me about the book, the last question they asked was, "What do you fear the most in this book getting published?" And thought about it and I thought, you know what? My biggest fear is that they're going to get the color of the doll horse wrong because it's not a Christmas red, like they might think for a Christmas book. It really is kind of an orangey red in the classic
Yeah.
sense. You can find them now in many, many different colors and shapes. There's Dala moose and Dala roosters and Dala pigs and Dala all kinds of things. But the classic one from the time period of the story would be kind of that orangey red horse.
Yeah, and it's very prominent, obviously, the whole story is about a little Dala horse and how he finds the meaning of Christmas, um, and the meaning of love, which is so tied in with Christmas. Can you tell us about Swedish Christmas traditions, and what is your favorite one?
Oh boy, I think a lot of times traditions are best passed along through smell and taste and sight. So the beauty of the candlelit service in Seattle, it was really the first major Lucia pageant I had ever seen. Growing up, my mom had us dress up like Lucia, and I had two sisters and a little brother, and she kind of had us do a Lucia pageant for our grandparents once or
Okay.
twice. But I had never been to a large Lucia pageant until I was in Seattle when I was a young single person and just for a few months. And happened to be there at Christmas time and saw this beautiful pageant and wanted to be a part of it. And at the time, I was on my way to Japan. I taught in Japan for 3 years. But when it came time to figuring out where is home, the Lucia pageant was a major factor because I wanted to settle down in a place that did something so beautiful on an annual basis. And it just seems like such a meaningful service as
Yeah.
well with the Santa Lucia story. So that has been a big one in my kind of adult life. Growing up, it was the rolling out of the peppercocker cookie dough with my grandmother, the little
Yeah.
thin ginger cookies.
I
I can
love
still hear
those.
her voice in my head saying, "Thinner, thinner, roll it
Yep.
thinner."
They have to snap.
And yeah. And the Spritz cookies, I thought
Mhm.
Spritz cookie guns were just the coolest thing, and so mostly, like, the smell of the cardamom bread baking, the braided loaves that my grandmother would make, and I learned how to do that, and it just, those kind of things really have been passed down with the recipes from generation to generation.
That's so good. Tradition is really, really important, isn't it? The thing that I like, I think the one thing this time of year, Thanksgiving to Christmas through the New Year, there's just for some reason, the rest of the year, we don't follow it as tightly, but boy, there are things that we will not let go of when it comes to the holidays, right? Just tradition is so important, and it really does ground us. Why do you think tradition is so important to families and communities? And what does it give us, and why should we endeavor to, like, share that with the next generation so that they get passed on? What does that give to people?
Oh, it's such an important question. And I think about this a lot. I actually had that as a theme for a talk to the Sweden Club here in Seattle last night. And we
Wow.
all agreed, actually, as a group, that Swedes have just the most charming, rich, heartfelt
You
traditions
do.
um, of just about anybody. I love the way Swedes celebrate Christmas in general. But I think it's so important for our kids. When I see I'm with, in a very I live in a very diverse community in Seattle, and, we have newish immigrants, old, immigrants, people that have been in the States for a long time, a lot of Native Americans, literally kids from all over the world.
Yeah.
Um, and the ones that I see most able and eager to learn somehow seem to be the ones most connected to family and community. And the kids that have a strong sense of who they are, where they've come from, what their family is about, those kids are kind of ready to take on the world. And it doesn't matter what country they're from. We have a strong, very thriving Vietnamese Christian church just right up the street from us. And those kids, they care about their Vietnamese heritage. They check out books about Vietnamese history. They check out Vietnamese language books. And other kids also are interested in where they came from, especially the more recent immigrants to America,
Yeah.
and you can tell that it's a conversation in their families, that it's being kept alive, kind of what they've been through and what they want out of life. And they are eager to learn as much as they can. And I see that as such a bonus to kids in our kind of divided world, no matter which side of the political spectrum you land on or somewhere
Yeah.
in the middle. Um, the kids that kind of know a little bit more about who they are and are grounded in some of these family traditions just seem ready to learn, ready to sit and listen, able to trust other adults. It really reverberates in ways that I can easily verbalize and ways that I can't.
Yeah, for sure. I think we all understand that. I think that's something that I resonate with simply because I think about like the traditions that I did with my children, that I see them doing with their children, that I got from my mom, who got them from her mom, and it's like it's like it just gets passed down and down and down. And while our Christmas looks very different than the Christmas I grew up with, simply because we were missionary families and we lived overseas 4 years in Japan, so we'll have to talk after this. But, and so we bring in some of the traditions of the places that we've lived, and so, which Japan doesn't really have many Christmas traditions because it's not a holiday that they celebrate. But all that to say that tradition is super, super important, and I think it brings a family together like nothing else does. But the other thing that I think tradition does is it helps us to make the celebration of Christ's birth more meaningful. Can you talk a little bit about why that is or how that happens?
Yes, I've got several thoughts I'm thinking about right now, and
Say them all,
one
it's
is
okay.
okay. um, the first one is that as we talk about how important tradition is, it's also like equally important to not be rigid and
Yes.
so structured in what you think you have to share. Um, it doesn't take a lot to be meaningful, and
Yes.
I have a Swedish grandfather. It was his parents that came over from Sweden, and I have a twin sister. And I will just have his voice reverberating through my head as long as I live of him walking in the house for Thanksgiving holidays or Christmas holidays and saying, "Where are the Tvillingar?" He just
Aw.
that one word, connected me to my Swedish heritage. And so it doesn't take a lot. And it also seems to resonate the most when something is um, most resonant with you, what means the most to you personally, and in a way that maybe you could share, with the loved ones in your lives about why it means so much to me.
Yes.
One of the reason why like peppercorn cookies mean so much to me is because I lived in Japan for 3 years as a teacher at a international school for boys. The whole school was boys,
Okay.
and the first year, I was extremely homesick and was having a very difficult time in the specific situation I was in. And a friend of mine from Minnesota sent me a box of peppercocker cookies.
Oh.
And I would go to the staff room and eat them during my breaks and cry, and they kept me connected to my family. And then my mom sent me about 10 little ornaments, including some Swedish kind of gnomes, tomtas and different
Yes.
things. And I put them on this little 10-inch high tree that I found at the corner
Daiso or
store
something. Yeah.
in a pot, and I'd eat my peppercocker and cry and look at my little tree. And so the things that really have spoken to you in your life are the best ones to share, because we can't relive our whole lives, what every single thing that's meaningful
Yeah.
to us. And what the next generation really wants to know is what is special to you and why. What have you gone through in your life and how did this help you? They want to kind of see us be a little bit vulnerable, and what parts of our traditions have spoken to us and made the birth of Christ ring out. I will back to Japan, I'll never forget the first Christmas there and going to a shop on like Christmas Eve, and there was another foreigner there, and we caught eyes and we looked at each other, and he was like, "Merry Christmas." I was like, "Yeah, Merry Christmas." And we just you just share those um moments when it just really has, rung true to you, I guess. And not every tradition that you try will work, and that's
Absolutely.
okay.
Yep.
My mom one all of my siblings and I had 2 kids each, a lot of girls, all 7 girls and 1 boy
Wow.
between us. And we would go home every other year to Ohio for Christmas, which is where I grew up, and, my mom decided that all these little kids needed a happy birthday Jesus birthday cake to make sure they knew that Christmas was Jesus' birthday.
Yeah.
But we already were surrounded by so many traditions and reminders and worship services and celebrations, Advent calendars, Advent
Yeah.
wreaths, the lighting of the candles on Sundays leading up to Christmas. We were already so kind of embedded in
Yeah.
Christmas traditions that felt like one too many, one sweet too many,
Yeah.
one dessert too
Like,
many.
one thing we don't eat is cake at Christmas.
Right. And so she abandoned that after a couple of years. And and that's okay. It's like
Yeah.
so the bottom line is, really think about what has meant something to you
Yeah.
personally in your life. How does it connect you to your grandparents, great grandparents, even, far back as you can go, and share those things.
Yeah, I love that, and I think the thing about tradition is like you said, we can't be rigid about it. And I think you're right. I think this generation, if there's one thing, my husband and I, my husband does a lot of campus ministry on we live on the University of Minnesota campus. And
Okay.
so I mean, we're surrounded by college students, and it's what keeps us looking young anyway. But the one thing that I think that we realize is that if there's nothing that they want more than anything, is that they want people who are just going to be honest with them about what's really happening. Like, if you're sad, be sad. Explain why. If you're upset, be upset, but explain why. They want truth. They want authenticity. They don't want fake at all. They're tired of, just like making something more important, trying to manufacture a feeling, I think is what they're sick of. And I think that
Right.
traditions, that's what's so real about traditions is if it resonates with you. Now you may have grown up with traditions that you were kind of like, okay, this is my mom because it resonated with her. But what resonates with you, that's the tradition that you bring into your family. And then you allow your children to find out what resonates with them to bring forward into their family. Um,
Right. Yeah, some things might make you a little sad.
yeah,
Like, my kids are both in condos now. They're both, like, 28, and one will be 31 tomorrow and is newly engaged and will be married this summer, so it's very exciting.
exciting.
And they're both in their own condos, and, they will call me every once in a while and say, "Oh, mom, do you have that recipe for peppercocker or, spritz or whatever? Can I borrow your spritz gun?"
Yeah.
And it just warms my heart. It is kind of funny though that they've never asked for a recipe for
Love to see
lutefisk
that. Yeah,
or that,
nobody needs
and
that.
that's not a big surprise, but not even rice pudding, and that one makes me
Oh,
kind of sad because I never make it because nobody else eats it really but me. I might make it
yeah.
this year, and they're grown up. They might have more adult taste now. I might try it again.
Does it freeze well? I mean, is this something you can make into little I
I
don't
don't
know
think
rice
so.
pudding. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't know. I just think pudding in general probably doesn't freeze well.
Right. The custard, I don't
I
know.
know, I just think, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it's interesting to see, when our kids, one year for Christmas, um, I had gone through all of our recipes, everything that we'd ever, things that I knew they loved. They were all kind of adults. All three of our children are now, they have their own homes and they're married and have kids. And so we have the whole extended life of family. Um, so I made a cookbook um,
Mm,
for them of all of our family recipes. I put in there, I had my husband's mom and my mom write out recipe cards, and then I included those in little like recipe card holders, and I got like a recipe. You can buy them on Amazon, just like a book that you can add your own
mhm,
recipes to and things like that. And I just kind of put together like these are our holiday recipes of the things that you guys enjoyed. And this is written out in grandma's handwriting. And this is another one written out in grandma's handwriting. And this is in mom's handwriting. And, because those are things that are really important. I remember having a cookbook from my grandma had. And one day I opened it up and there was her handwriting. It was like, oh, super emotional. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm not emotional really, but that got me. And
mhm.
I think about like traditions that were left behind. Like every year growing up, my kids, we did a gingerbread house. And I have tried to revive that with my grandbabies, and it is not happening. And I'm like sadly having to leave that one behind, which is breaking my heart a little, but you
Right.
know, there's
You
other
never know.
things.
Maybe someday they'll, come to you and say, "Oh, we've got this great idea.
Let's
Would
do a
you be
gingerbread
into
house.
that?"
And I'm thinking,
Yeah,
really?
right.
Well,
Yeah.
Sonia, I appreciate you so much. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here. And for my listeners, everything that you need to know to get this book, it's from Tyndale Publishers. And everything that you need to know to get this book for your family, I am going to put in the description of this podcast. Um, you guys, it's a fabulous little book, and I just it's going to become a tradition. I promise you, it will. It's
Oh,
just a great story. It's got a lot of great stuff. There's little Swedish words in there that you get to learn as you read the story. There's all the things. If you're Scandinavian at all, Swedish at all, you will recognize a lot of what's in this book. The illustrations are gorgeous. So we just are so thankful, and the story is just heartwarming and sweet, and it will be a favorite, I promise you. But thank you so much, Sonia, for coming on. on the podcast today.
Oh, you're so welcome. It really was a joy to be here to meet you and to get to share with your listeners today.
Well, I appreciate you so much, and I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season and everybody's healthy and happy, and it's perfect.
Good Yule.
Good Yule. Thank you guys for listening. Bye bye.